Hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of Kev's Movie Corner. I am Kev, and this week we are talking about North by Northwest. This movie was released in 1959. It is an Alfred Hitchcock film. Quick snippet from IMDb is a group, not a group. A New York City advertising executive goes on the run after being mistaken for a government agent by a group of foreign spies and falls for a woman whose loyalties he begins to doubt. This was a very enjoyable movie. I thought it was really good. It's 2 hours and 15 minutes, so just over 2 hours. But being a Hitchcock film, it is suspenseful. There's a lot of stuff going on constantly, and it's interesting. There's a lot of twists and turns, and which is why we're going to talk about it. Which is why the spoilers. It's just the way it is. If you've watched any of these before, so this movie stars Cary Grant as Roger Thornhill, Eva Marie Saint as Eve Kendall, and James Mason as Phillip Vandamm. Those are your... really, Cary Grant as Roger Thornhill and Eva Marie Saint are your two main characters. But Mason plays a pretty sizable role in this as well. Anyway, so you start with Roger Thornhill, Cary Grant's character, showing up for a lunch with a couple of colleagues. He's the advertising executive mentioned at the beginning here. And by the way, sorry if my voice is obnoxious. If you watched the podcast a couple days ago, you'll know that I've been kind of going through some illness. So it's we're working through it. But anyway, Roger Thornhill goes to this dinner. Couple of thugs for the foreign spies show up. And they have the waiter, maitre d', whatever you want to say, page a George Kaplan. Because George Kaplan is actually the spy that they're looking for. They don't know what he looks like. They've never seen him before. But George Kaplan is the spy that they're looking for. And at the time that they call the maitre d', Roger Thornhill talks to the maitre d' and gets up. So he gets confused for Kaplan and gets taken as he's going to send a telegram, wire, phone call, whatever. He gets taken away by the thugs in a car. And he tries to tell him, I'm not Thornhill, I don't know who this is, or I'm not Kaplan, I don't know who this is. They take him to a giant estate, the estate of, what's the dude's name? Lester Townsend. They take him to the estate of Lester Townsend, a very nice big house, where he meets Vandamm. Vandamm is posing as Townsend, and tries to get him to cooperate. Keeps telling him, we know who you are. Thornhill is kind of just, pushing back, and they don't listen to him. They force him to drink basically an entire bottle of liquor, and then they're going to kill him by staging it as a drunk driving crash off of a cliff. He doesn't actually crash off the cliff. He drives away. As he's driving away, he gets arrested, pulled over and arrested for drunk driving, and then tries to explain to the police what happened. They don't believe him. Obviously, they don't believe him. And because he's telling them this wild story. Oh, these guys tried to kidnap me, and then they forced me to drink a bunch of liquor, and then they put me in a car and tried, and all this stuff. And the next day, he goes to court. He tries to tell the judge. Judge says, we're going to investigate it, whatever. But, right now you're in trouble. And they go, Thornhill's mom, and the police go to back to the Townsend mansion. And when they get there, nobody is there that they expect. The woman who claims to be Thornhill's or Townsend's wife talks to Thornhill like, "Oh yeah, you were here last night. You were drunk. You drank too much. Why'd you drive home? You shouldn't have done that." And plays it all off as nothing goes on, and they find out that Townsend is actually a UN diplomat. He's at the UN. He hasn't been home, and this kind of makes the police less understandable and less to believe Thornhill's story. He ends up leaving with the police and his mom. His mom and him then try to go find this George Kaplan because they want to straighten this whole thing out. So he finds out the hotel that Kaplan is supposedly staying in, goes up to his room. Everybody assumes that he's Kaplan. The bellhop, the maid, everybody assumes that he's Kaplan because they've never seen Kaplan. They're like, oh yeah, he calls and he tells us to clean and do stuff like that, but we never actually see him. He's never around. And did I skip over this? After he, yeah, no, never mind. We're good. The mob, the spies come after him. They find out that he's there. They come after him because they knew that Kaplan was there. They're trying to, find this guy. They know that he's at this hotel. So they come up to the hotel. He runs away. He runs to the UN to meet with Townsend because he believes that Vandamm is Townsend. When he gets there, he meets the actual Townsend, who is confused by what's going on. He says he hasn't been home. His wife isn't at the home. The home's all boarded up, shuttered up, because he doesn't stay there when he's at the UN. And while they're having this conversation, Townsend is not understanding what's going on. He's trying to figure out what's going on, and he gets one of the thugs throws a knife into his back and kills him. And as this happens, he falls into Thornhill's hands. Thornhill grabs the knife and is taking a picture that makes him look like he's guilty because he's holding the knife, and that gets printed in the papers, and then he gets accused of murdering a UN diplomat. So after this, he runs away. He gets on a train to Chicago, where he meets Eve Kendall. This is the first time you see her in the whole movie. And she tells the police that he ran off the train, when they're chasing him on there. And then they kind of have a little meet cute. She kind of protects him, and as they're going towards Chicago. But you notice, and they kind of get in a relationship, relationship, whatever, and intimate relationship, I guess is what you would call it. But anyway, Eve at one point sends a note to, and you learn that she is actually working with the spies. So when they get to Chicago, he asks when he's going to see her again. She says, I don't know. She says that she knows who Kaplan is, or she's going to find out who Kaplan is. She calls and sends Thornhill out into the middle of nowhere in Indiana to meet him. That's what she says. Okay, here, go to this address. He'll meet you there at this time. Take the bus, whatever. And Thornhill goes out there, and as he's out there, he gets attacked by a crop duster. They try to run him down. They try to shoot at him. Eventually, they end up crashing into a gasoline or an oil truck, and the plane explodes, and he runs off back to Chicago and steals somebody else's truck when they come by to look at the crash, and then he runs off back to Chicago. So, he's on the run, FBI, New York police, whatever. He's on the run for murder, all this kind of stuff. He goes back to Chicago, looking for Kaplan again, finds the hotel where he was staying, and he sees Eve there. He follows her up to her room, and then talks with her to try to figure out why she would send him to that. She acted like she cared for him. Why would she send him to a situation like that? She, doesn't really explain it. She's just kind of like, well, I can't, can't talk about it. And at this point, he decides he's going to stay with her all the time. She has to go to meet somebody. She doesn't say who it is. You end up, he follows her. You end up learning that it is Vandamm that she's going to meet. And very quickly after this, you kind of start to figure out that she is actually the spy that is supposed to be Kaplan. Oh, and I forgot to mention, after he first stabs Townsend. Man, I'm all over the place with this. Sorry. After he stabs Townsend, or he accused of stabbing Townsend, the secret agents, the U.S. Intelligence Service, they cut to them in a meeting, and they're talking about this story. Roger Thornhill, how he stabbed somebody and is accused of being Kaplan and whatever. And they decide not to intervene, even though, because they don't want to give up their agent's position, because Kaplan is not actually a real person. He's a plant. It is a made-up person who they are trying to trick the spies to get them to not realize that there's somebody right under their nose, is what they say. So Thornhill goes to this event. She follows Eve to this event in Chicago. It's a auction, and he sees Vandamm there. This is where he learns that Vandamm is not Townsend. He learns his name, and he learns that they're together and they're working together, or something's going on. So, because he doesn't want to die, he starts making a fool of himself. Just a ridiculous. Just starts making a muck of this auction, and the police end up showing up, and he gets arrested. He does it on purpose. He gets arrested. The police try to, they take him away. They take him downtown. During this, he's asking to go downtown. He's like, oh yeah, you guys caught the murderer or whatever. And they're like, oh yeah, and what are you talking about? They don't have a clue as to what's going on. But he tells them. They end up calling it in, and they get told to take him to the airport, which he doesn't like. That's when he meets up with the lead intelligence agent who was trying not to get him involved, trying to keep him out of this whole thing. They leave. They go to South Dakota, because that is Vandamm's next stop with Kendall. They're going to Mount Rushmore. And at this point, Thornhill is clued in on what's going on. He's told that Eve is, undercover. He wasn't supposed to get wrapped up in this. He's putting her at risk by doing all this stuff. And he ends up they end up finding Eve at a restaurant. She pretends to shoot Thornhill. She shoots him. You learn quickly that it's blanks. So that the spies think that Kaplan is gone. They believe, okay, Kaplan's not around anymore. We didn't have to do anything. She killed him for us. So great, done. And that also kind of gets her back onto the good graces of them, because she was kind of wavery when they thought she was with Kaplan. So you've got that whole thing going on. Thornhill learns a little bit more. He's like, okay, you can't see her. She's gonna go with them to wherever they're going. Another place. She's gonna be taking a flight with them, and Thornhill doesn't like this. He's not happy about it. So basically, he goes rogue and tries to and goes to find her. And ends up learning some stuff about what's going on. He learns that they're one of the things that was sold to them in the auction is how they're actually getting data and things back and forth to the to their leaders during Cold War. And somebody mentions the Cold War in it, but you never really hear. Nobody has accents or anything, so there's not a lot to assume that it's. I didn't think it was a lot to assume who it was, except when they said Cold War, it made me think of the USSR. But that's the only throwaway thing there was in that. But anyway, he finds Eve at a house with the spies. They end up. He gets when she gets by herself. He's listening. He's trying to focus on her and get her out, but he also ends up hearing what the spies are talking about, and they have figured out that she is not actually, that she faked the shooting him and all that kind of stuff. So, they take to put her on a plane with the statue that has the things in it. Thornhill goes after her, and they end up being chased down the front of Mount Rushmore, which is where she shot him at a like the event center or visitor center at Mount Rushmore is where she actually shot him. So this house was up back behind there, and they end up being chased down the faces of Mount Rushmore, basically. And at this point, one of the spies catches up with him, is about to kill them both by, they're barely hanging on, about to kill them both by knocking them off the mountain. And the police show up and shoot him, and then Thornhill is trying to save Eve, and at that point when he's trying to grab her hand to save her, it cuts to them on a train, and he's pulling her up onto a bunk bed, and she's now a Thornhill, so they're now married. And that's basically how the movie ends. Sorry that was all over the place. I apologize. I'm not that good at this. Just to let you know, if you haven't figured that out yet. But this movie did really well critically. It did really pretty well actually at the box office too. I was reading that it set a record at the time for opening week. For its opening week at Radio City Music Hall, which is where it was screened, for both just a record-setting opening week and a record for non-holiday week grossing of the movie. It was nominated for 3 Academy Awards. It did not win any of them, unfortunately. It was also I forgot what I was going to say there. Anyway, this movie, like I said, is fun. If you like a good suspense thriller or an Alfred Hitchcock film, obviously if you like Alfred Hitchcock, you've probably already seen this. This is one of his, top films. Obviously it's on this list. It looks like there was some confusion about where the name came from, which I thought was interesting. There's some people that say it was taken from a mistaken line from, or it was a line taken from Hamlet. Another one said that it was something to do with like the traveling, because it's the direction it goes is from like New York to Chicago to South Dakota to Alaska. But it's, I don't know, it's not really that, I guess it doesn't really matter that much, but I did think it was interesting. Apparently, Alfred Hitchcock had kind of, somehow he had gotten James Stewart to believe that he was going to play Thornhill in this movie. There was a miscommunication when they were shooting Vertigo the year before. And even though Hitchcock wanted Cary Grant to play the role of Thornhill, but it got to the point where James Stewart was so excited to play it that Hitchcock didn't want to hurt his feelings, because it would have kind of, devastated him. So he waited till Stewart was already committed to filming another movie, and then offered him the job, so that he would have to turn it down and he could Cary Grant, which I thought was interesting. But yeah, anyway, North by Northwest, fun movie. I thought it was very interesting. It's it goes by quick because there's a lot of stuff going on constantly. It's very suspenseful, obviously very thrilling. The cover of it that I'm looking at here on IMDb is kind of funny because it's got Mount Rushmore, and then Alfred Hitchcock's face is fifth head next to Lincoln, which is kind of funny. But anyway, I think that's it for this week. Hope you guys liked. My thing stopped apparently, so that's why I paused there. So you might be hearing some weird audio right now. Hope you guys liked this. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and talk to you guys next week.